Uyo, uko, kuno, abo, bano. Mama wanna get it, mama wanna get it nice.
Right, 5 July 2023, and today I'm joined by my usual guest, Dr. Feddious Mutenheri. How are you, Doc?
Gambako, I'm very well. A very good evening to you and to the viewers all around the world.
Okay, fantastic. And I want us to quickly look at the trending topic that is currently ongoing, which is the issue of presidential candidate Savior Kasukuwere. Savior Kasukuwere has introduced himself as a candidate in the 2023 elections. He attempted to form a party in the past, or a movement called Tyson Wabandu, but this time around, he is actually registered as a presidential candidate. So I want to look at that new development and also your views on his suggestion or his proposal of a government of national unity. Obviously, if it's a government of national unity, he's looking at working with people like Nelson Chamisa, and I want to know what you think about that. Do you think that is possible for Chamisa to work with Savior Kasukuwere, and what are your how do you support your argument?
Thank you very much, Gambakwe. Actually, that is a very pertinent question, and obviously a question that lingers in everyone's mind, particularly the generality of Zimbabweans. Gambakwe, let me start by saying there is no doubt that unity of opposition in Zimbabwe is a desirable thing. It is desirable because unity will obviously serve to consolidate the votes into one basket in order to dislodge ZANU-PF. However, unity should always be based on shared values and principles amongst those people who seek to unite, or the political parties that will seek to unite. It cannot just be unity for the sake of it, to just remove ZANU-PF from power. And then what? The events of November 2017 are instructive. Why do I say so? They can teach us few lessons about Zimbabwe. When most Zimbabweans united to dislodge Mugabe, it was possible. Mugabe was removed. But because that was not based on any principles or any values that we can point to, the result was catastrophic. The result is what we can see today, that we simply removed one dictator and replaced him with another dictator. In fact, that leads me to the second point, that it is the genuineness of the actors within that pact that is put to a test. Like in 2017, we had ZANU-PF on one side, and we know that like to a larger extent, the MDC then supported what was happening because everybody was weary of the Mugabe rule. But what were the motives of ZANU-PF? ZANU-PF tried through the army to rally everybody around, but they had ulterior motives, different from what those Zimbabweans we saw marching wanted. And therefore, that unity, in as much as it led to the removal of Robert Mugabe, did not yield the anticipated result. Okay, so having said that, one can say probably there was supposed to be a pre-election pact that is based on those values I'm talking about and the principles. And those values, Gambakwe, are not a secret, that what Zimbabweans need is a democratic society in which people are free to express themselves, in which political actors are able to do their activities without fear, in which the government of the day runs that economy on the basis of agreed principles of how to run an economy, which is something that we lack right now. And you ask me now about Kasukuwere, the current thing that faces us. Let's look at the entrance of Kasukuwere himself. Who is he? As he seeks this GNU. Let's look at his past, because history always teaches us. Kasukuwere is was a non-operative who even served in the Central Intelligence Organization in his young age. He also went on to serve the very Mugabe government that was removed in November 2017. And we know what he represented even as he was serving the Mugabe government. He was one of those hardliners who totally rejected what reforms Zimbabweans wanted. We know as a minister of youth empowerment that he pursued himself policies that mirrored the radicalness and of ZANU-PF, which at that time was destructive, set the country on fire basically. As a minister of was it Home Affairs and stuff like that, he also pursued policies which were not unifying. We saw violence, the state institutions like the police, being used to attack opposition and those who sought a free society. That's what he represented. But above all, we know that he represented the lavishness of that regime of Robert Mugabe. It is not lost to our memory that he still has a white elephant of a house that we are told he had 50 bedrooms. People talk of numerous toilets that are in that house just for a single person. In the midst, that kind of lavishness, in the midst of the penury, of the poverty that Zimbabweans faces, is what we can remember about Savior Kasukuwere, and that should not be forgotten. Why should we not forget that? Because Savior Kasukuwere cannot just wake up and be a changed man away from the deeds that we know him to have pursued. Not only that, Gambako, we know Savior Kasukuwere's associates, his associates who are the G40. I want to speak particularly about Professor Jonathan Moyo. I want to speak particularly about the nephew of President Mugabe. What's his name? The Rastaman. Those are people who he has not dissociated from. And today, if you listen to the kind of talk from Jonathan Moyo, who he has not distanced himself from, we can only think that he is one of his strategists. He is one of the leading lights in his movement. And one question people should pose is that, are those the people that they would want in a new Zimbabwe? Are the policies enunciated by the likes of Jonathan Moyo and his ilk the ones that one would want? So when you look at those questions, then you ask, what are the values that Triple C is proposing? Their proposition is that of a free society, a democratic society. And does that match with these people who are now coming? I don't think they do match. But another thing, Gambakwe, is that, and I've mentioned it in my introductory statements, that are they genuine actors in this talk of a GNU? Are they genuine in saying that? That question is very pertinent and important, because the recent past can teach us again that even as they work in the GNU, remember the nitty-gritty of the GNU. The whole negotiation was centered on whether ZANU-PF was willing to share power in reality. They were not. We remember the fight for the ministries, who controls which ministry, who controls what ministry. ZANU-PF had the hardline stance that all they wanted to control were those ministries which hold the levers of power. And we know and we knew at that time why they wanted that. It was because they wanted to renew themselves. They wanted to give themselves breathing space so that they can appease those that supported the MDC, local and international. But at a certain point, then they would strike. And they did strike by the 2013 election, in which we saw that they had no appetite for unity at all. While Zimbabweans had a reprieve between 2009 and 2013 within that GNU, courtesy of the efforts of the opposition, ZANU-PF was determined to get a new lease of life and then take over again. And when they took over, what happened? What is happening in our economy is happening. Corruption is still rampant. There is no appetite for reform within the same ZANU-PF. So for me, I would advise the Triple C led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa that in any case of overtures from the likes of Kasukuwere for a government of national unity, there is need for a deep interrogation as to what their motives are. Why is he coming now? Why in this 2023 election? Gambakwe, there is a school of thought actually that says ZANU-PF, once you are ZANU-PF, you are always ZANU-PF. Jonathan Moyo, who in some of his tweets vowed never to rejoin ZANU-PF, we see what he is doing. He is hobnobbing and literally in his talk, he is showing that as that he is back to his party and back to his thinking. So one can say the school of thought is that probably people like Savior Kasukuwere were sent away. The likes of Jonathan Moyo were sent away just as a facade that there is a total split in ZANU-PF, only to say no, nguva yenyu yekudya yambokwana chimboendai isitombofana kudya muchigadzira muri kokote, showing people as if they are divided. And then right now these are the same people coming back. ZANU-PF chainoda kumedza other political parties. So the Triple C, if ever there were overtures from the likes of Kasukuwere, they must, if they go to that table to dine with them, they must use a long spoon, because they will end up even missing their own fingers. They should not trust these people. They should not trust these people. I have underlined the fact that, are they genuine actors in this GNU? Obviously, there is an obvious a case, especially by those in the G40 who probably would say we do not have a home, to say let's unite and remove this Mnangagwa regime. But it can never be and cannot be only about removing the Mnangagwa regime. There has to be a set of values, a set of principles, tangible pact that talks to what will happen in case the current regime is removed from power, so that people can see the benefits of that kind of unity. So while in people's minds it looks like this is probably a genuine a unity of nature, Triple C should be very wary and should be advised that ngavatambi vakachenjera.
Okay, Doc, I think it's clear you're obviously advising Chamisa against going into a GNU with Savior Kasukuwere. I want us to look at one more thing before we close this. I want to share with you the campaign message by S. Lumumba, who is one of the campaign members of Savior Kasukuwere. So I want to look at this presentation, which was done on SABC, and I hope you'll be able to hear this. Let's see if you can hear this. The network is just loading. Let's see if I can get this to load.
Run for president of Zimbabwe?
President Kasukuwere has the blessing of the non-Karanga vote. He has the blessing of the youth in ZANU-PF who are despondent and resident to the fact that ZANU-PF has no space for them. President Kasukuwere has the vote of the Women's League, who now realize that there's nothing on offer for them. President Kasukuwere has the vote of the war veterans, who thought if one of them took office and took power, they would have a chance to a fresh start. President Kasukuwere.
Right, I want to pause it there. Let's talk about the non-Karanga vote. Do you think this is true? Is this true that the non-Karanga vote is going to go to Savior Kasukuwere?
Partly what he is saying is true, but also partly very, very incorrect and politically expedient. Of course, we know that Savior Kasukuwere hails from the Mashonaland province, and in there is the Zulu and the other. I mean, first and foremost, why S. Lumumba is talking like this, it is because ZANU-PF itself is intoxicated the Zimbabwean politics on the basis of ethnicity and ethnic orientation, which is a totally wrong and a bad principle. Like I was telling you of the principles upon which a new Zimbabwe should be built on. Do we need to build a new Zimbabwe on the basis of ethnicity, of ethnic affiliation? It's a total no, an emphatic no. That's not a Zimbabwe that we want. So S. Lumumba can throw the ethnic card, but the current and modern political discourse is not supposed to be built on that kind of narrative. That's a wrong narrative. So for me, it is, while it can appeal to some in ZANU-PF who probably are not happy with the current Karangarization of ZANU-PF by President Mnangagwa and his own cabal, it is not the basis of creating a new Zimbabwe. So for me, I reject it, and I'm sure Zimbabweans reject that proposition. I don't know if you also want me to go to what he said after that, but on that basis alone, the principles and values that I was talking about are not catered for in what this young man is saying. These are political, mafikizolos, the likes of Lumumba. Matsotsi, we know the kind of game they play, and they are thrown in to throw such words to rabu-rouse and to try to talk to those within ZANU-PF who have got this obnoxious thinking in which Zimbabweans are supposed to be divided either by class, by race, and now, as he talks, by ethnicity, which should not be the basis. Advocate Nelson Chamisa's message has never been that of ethnic affiliation. So on that alone, from what I was saying in this kind of unity, it shows that there is non-compatibility, there is compatibility between the alternative which is seeking a new Zimbabwe and what this faction of ZANU-PF is advocating for, which is a campaign based on the ethnic card.
Okay, Doc, can you still see me?
I can see you clearly. If, as you are going on, I can see that Lumumba also talks about Savior Kasukuwere being having been endorsed by the war veterans. That is a very questionable statement that is just throwing around. We know very well that Savior Kasukuwere, when he was the political commissar of ZANU-PF, his major antagonists were the war veterans. They were the war veterans who viewed him as a non-fighter himself, as a mafikizolo who did not understand the needs or even the values of the liberation struggle. And we know that the fight that he had, which even led him to be ejected out, was because they said he disrespected the war veterans. So on what basis is S. Lumumba saying that the war veterans have endorsed him? Is this just for political expedience? Is this just for an opportunistic moment in which to spite the other side of ZANU-PF? I should say what Lumumba is saying is hogwash, which is not based on facts. He's just throwing it as a statement. Which war veterans have come out to support his candidature? He should be clear on that. So basically, their narrative and their discourse is very wrong, and it totally shows that they are empty of any philosophical underpinning of their political campaign in this election.
Okay, Doc, I'm so sorry. I think my network is playing up. My electricity is just about to go. I can see that it's about to happen. So please just confirm if you can still hear me.
I can hear you very well. You are, if you can see me, I can hear you.
Okay, so I obviously wanted to end with the issue of Tsinoma Mbeu, one of the chief fundraisers for Nelson Chamisa. Is also campaigning for Savior Kasukuwere. What is your comment on that?
Zimbabwe is in theory a democratic state, a democratic republic. It's a republic in which people are free to associate and dissociate, in which people are free to belong and to unbelong, in which people are free to join and unjoin. So it's not new that Tsinoma Mbeu could have at one point fundraised for the cause of the democratic movement as led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa, and just like many other Zimbabweans who defect, he, for his own personal reasons, if it's true that he is now fundraising for Savior Kasukuwere, it's his democratic right. But the people should then judge those actors who now want to come as repentant, repentant soldiers, repentant politicians who now want to preach national unity. They must judge to say, are they genuine? And this they can only do at the ballot. And so the ballot is an equalizer. It is the tool, it is the instrument on which then the generality of Zimbabweans can then judge people to say, do they believe in your message? Do they believe in your genuineness? Do they believe that you are an angel of the democratic movement? Do they think that you are an agent of change? And Tinoma Mbeu should not at all be regarded as an important actor in all this. There are many, numerous other actors that have crossed the political divide to join others. And what it only does is that it defines who those people are. Look at Jonathan Moyo. There is no doubt in everyone's mind that he is a political, if you like, prostitute. He is a political, a flip-flopper, a legendary one, whose brain, while God had blessed him with some talent of analyzing, but it is totally intoxicated with a pursuance of power for the sake of it, pursuance of his own fame, that he is a professor, but he is just a nutty professor who now has become useless in the Zimbabwean discourse today. And so any actor you can talk about, Gambakwe, whether it's Tinoma Mbeu or anyone who has ever worked for the cause of the democratic movement, whether they have changed or not, it's totally a non-issue. It's untopical. It's not topical. We have got the likes of these people, this guy who used to run in Kwekwe, who used to defeat President Mnangagwa, who crossed to ZANU-PF. What is the message there? We have got a whole lot, a whole bunch of people. It doesn't speak of Advocate Nelson Chamisa. In fact, it speaks to the unprincipled nature of those politicians. I want you to look at the history of Advocate Nelson Chamisa. You look at how he rose from the lower ranks of the MDC when it was formed in 1999, from being the spokesperson of the youth into being even the spokesperson of the party. He became the organizing secretary of the party. At one point, he was removed from any position, and he found himself being just appointed as in the national executive. But when others were jumping ship, he remained committed to the cause. He remained committed to the fact that he was a change champion. And when his time came, he once again started rising up to where he is now. We know that after the 2018 election, the likes of Monzora, who were obviously planted within that party, tried to destabilize, tried to make sure that they annihilate that kind of principle that he had. But he remained resolute. That's why today he's leading the biggest political party in Zimbabwe. That is why he is the hope of many Zimbabweans who are yearning for change. That is why today he has got the support not only of people in ZANU-PF, those who are asking for a GNU, but the generality of Zimbabweans. It is because they judge him on principle. They can look back at his history and say, here is a man that has shown us that akamira semuzambangwena, he is willing to die for what he believes, not these fly-by-night politicians who jump from pillar to post looking for opportunities to get into power. So that's my comment there, Kamba.
Okay, Doc, I think we're almost 30 minutes into it. Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
Definitely, Gambako. What I want to say is that Zimbabwe at the moment, the political environment in Zimbabwe is mired political minefields, which makes the prospect of unity, which makes the prospect of political coalitions, of political pacts, a very difficult proposition. But listen to me, I am saying it is a desirable, very desirable, actually act that the politicians can take. But with the current crop of politicians outside of the of Advocate Nelson Chamisa and the Triple C, it is a minefield in which, if it has to be done, if it has to be embarked on, it should be based on tangible, agreeable, and clearly backed agreements, underwritten agreements in which people know their roles, or people know what kind of trajectory they are going to take, in which people would know what kind of policies we are going to take, what kind of direction we are going to take. And so for me, Advocate Nelson Chamisa should create, of course, a big tent in which people can join, because this is the citizens movement, and people should join not on the basis that they want to be in the front. They should join in the basis that they want to give a hand to the cause. They want to give a helping a hand to make sure that this change movement achieves the ultimate goal, which is to dislodge ZANU-PF and start to lead Zimbabwe on the right path. Not these people who want to jump in and be in at the pulpit and say, I want to lead. Already when they do that, it shows you that their motives are just to get the power and then show us their true political colors after. So vana Advocate Nelson Chamisa ngavarege kucheuka. Some of these are side shows, not really based on principled leadership, principled politics, principled values, which says Zimbabweans are suffering today and they need to be extricated from this abyss of poverty, abyss of corruption, abyss of the gold mafia, abyss of lack of freedom, into a new Zimbabwe where a new democratic culture starts to set in, a culture not based on these nonsensical views of ethnicity that the Lumumbas are talking about, principles not based on yesteryear dictators who want to come to preach to us about unity. No, it's an emphatic no. So Advocate Nelson Chamisa should lead. He is the current leader who has the political currency, and it is for everyone to see, to lead a discourse and a discussion in which unity should be constructed. The infrastructure of unity should be constructed, and if people are really up for unity, then they should accept that leadership, which is there for everyone to see, and learn to follow, learn to give a helping hand. That's the advice that I want to end with this evening, Kambako.
All right, thank you very much, Doc. I always enjoy talking to you, and I'll see you again next week. Let's keep following the developments, and obviously we need to cover these elections in detail as you go towards the elections. Apparently, Savior Kasukuwere is going to be announcing the dates when he's going to arrive in Zimbabwe. That's going to be a very, very eventful day if that is to happen, because ZANU-PF has said they're going to arrest him as soon as he sets foot in Zimbabwe. So me and you, on that day when he gets into Zimbabwe, we should come back here and have a chat about it.
It's something that I am looking forward to. You know, I was actually shocked that, you know, ZANU-PF will never cease to amaze you. when I saw Tsenengamu, now he is back, and he is once again, you can see the Chamisa of that new movement. Jim Kunaka of the Chipangano is back home. You know, ZANU-PF always morphs into an animal it wants in order. It's like a chameleon. It morphs into colorful emblems which it wants people to see, so that it can then achieve what it wants to achieve. But people should be warned that ZANU-PF is ZANU-PF. Zvatinotongoiziya ichitongo iri iyo yokuti ndeyeropa, ndo zvayo izvozvo, ende vanhu vayo vanotongowo vanhu vayo ivavo. So I mean, exciting political developments, and as you rightly say, let's see what he is going to do, because they are saying they will arrest him.
Yes.
We want to see.
All right, good night, Doc, and good night, everybody.
Good night, Gambagwe. Good night to our viewers.
Uyo, uko, kuno, abo, ano, mamuona kere, mamuona